The moment the world had been bracing for finally exploded, ripping straight through every heart that heard it. Phylicia Rashad, voice trembling, eyes drowning in decades of buried truth, stood before the world and dropped the bomb no one was ready to catch. Malcolm's death, never an accident, it was a full-blown conspiracy. Her confession ripped through Hollywood like a hurricane on steroids. The room froze, the air turned ice. And then came the name that made millions clutch their chests in disbelief. Bill Cosby, and Phylicia didn't stop there. She swore he wasn't acting solo. Hiding in the shadows was another, also familiar face, someone Malcolm once trusted like blood. Tempestt Bledsoe. Yes, you heard that right. Phylicia's voice cracked, teetering on sobs, as she hurled the accusation at Tempestt during a live Zoom call. The tension, unbearable, the shock, brain-melting. She unearthed a secret buried for decades, revealing Malcolm had lived in fear, warning her that Tempestt was moving behind his back, plotting to obliterate everything he had built. Then came the knockout punch, a 1997 tape. In it, Malcolm's voice trembled with fury as he called out Tempestt for sabotaging his career, plotting to wipe him clean out of Hollywood's memory. Days later, Malcolm was gone. And so was the illusion of innocence. When news hit that Tempestt had been arrested for allegedly playing a major role in Malcolm's death, the entire world forgot how to breathe. Fans wept, friends crumbled, strangers lined the streets, candles flickering against the night. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was betrayal in its purest, coldest form. Malcolm didn't simply lose his life, he was stolen from us, and the very people we believed were his family. They were the ones twisting the blade. It started like any other calm evening, until the truth slammed down like a tidal wave. The world had always known Malcolm Jamal Warner as the warm, smiling soul from our TV screens. The man whose charm lit up living rooms for decades. To his fans, he wasn't just an actor, he was family. But what Phylicia Rashad unleashed that day would forever shatter the image we had of him, and even more, of those who swore they loved him. Her voice wasn't the confident, commanding tone we'd grown to expect. It was drenched in grief and a slow-burning rage, the kind of rage that festers for years, feeding on a secret so dark it rots you from the inside out. With tears brimming in her eyes, she spoke the words that froze every viewer in place. Malcolm's death wasn't an accident, it was orchestrated, and the ones behind it were the very people closest to him. Gasps ricocheted through the live stream chats. Thousands of comments blurred past in seconds. Shock, fury, heartbreak, and then she said it. Bill Cosby, the man who once played Malcolm's TV dad, the man we thought was a mentor, a shield, the man who, in our minds, would never be capable of something so monstrous. But Phylicia wasn't finished, not even close. Her next words cut even deeper, like a blade twisting in an open wound. There was someone else, a face we all recognized, someone who had laughed beside Malcolm, shared scenes, and posed for cameras with the warmth of a best friend. Tempestt Bledsoe. The revelation struck like a lightning bolt to the chest. Fans worldwide froze, scrambling to match the sunny, cheerful image of Tempestt with the bombshell accusation Phylicia had just hurled. She wasn't dropping hints, she wasn't playing coy, she was pointing the finger straight at her, declaring that Tempestt had teamed up with Cosby to tear Malcolm apart from the inside. And then came the internet-breaking moment. It was you. Phylicia's voice cracked with fury as she shouted into the camera during a live Zoom call, a clip already being captured by hundreds of viewers. It was you who took him from us, you and Cosby, you plotted it, you made it happen. The chat section erupted, crying emojis, furious faces, and frantic demands for answers flying faster than anyone could read. According to Phylicia, the tension between Malcolm and Tempestt had been simmering for years. Off camera, far from the spotlight, their friendship had rotted in alive by jealousy and distrust. Malcolm had confided in her again and again, warning that Tempestt wasn't the person she pretended to be, that she was actively dismantling his career and cutting him off from the entire industry. And then came the detail that would haunt people's dreams for years, a relic from 1997, long before social media, before TMZ, before anyone dared imagine a scandal like this going public. In it, Malcolm's voice is jagged, trembling with equal parts rage and heartbreak. You can hear him confronting Tempestt, accusing her of seeding false stories about him, of turning allies into enemies, of trying to erase him from existence. The argument spirals until he delivers the line that now feels like a bone-chilling prophecy. You're trying to destroy me. You won't stop until I'm gone. Those words lingered in the air like a curse, and just months later, Malcolm was dead. Back then, it was packaged neatly as a tragic accident, unforeseeable loss no one could have stopped. But now, with Felicia's bombshell confession, that polished narrative was collapsing in real time. What had once been framed as fate now reeked of a calculated, cold-blooded takedown, and the world was livid. Within hours of the live stream, hashtags detonated across Twitter and Instagram. Hashtag Justice for Malcolm, hashtag Arrest Tempestt, hashtag Cosby Exposed. Old interviews were dragged out of the archives. Photos were scrutinized frame by frame, and past red carpet clips were dissected like pieces of a crime scene puzzle. Fans spotted moments when Malcolm's eyes seemed distant around Tempestt, or when her smile never quite touched her. Then, just days later, the aftershock hit. Tempestt Bledsoe had been arrested. Reporters mobbed the courthouse, cameras flashing like lightning as she was marched out in handcuffs. The charges were as chilling as they were devastating: obstruction and alleged involvement in the calculated planning of Malcolm's death. It was surreal. The woman so many had grown up watching was now the centerpiece of one of Hollywood's darkest scandals. Outside the courthouse, fans gathered, clutching signs that screamed, "We want the truth and Malcolm deserved better." Some sobbed openly, others unleashed their fury in shouts. The grief had evolved, no longer just about losing Malcolm, but about facing the gut-wrenching truth that the very people who should have protected him were the ones who shattered him. And for Phylicia Rashad, the cost of holding this secret for so many years had been crushing. She confessed that for years, she had been threatened into silence, warned that speaking out would ruin her career, her reputation, even her safety. But after decades of living with the guilt, she said she could no longer keep the truth locked away. This wasn't just a tragedy, she said through tears during an exclusive interview. It was betrayal. The worst kind of betrayal, the kind that comes from family. That one word, family, cut deeper than any headline. Because, to millions of fans, the cast of The Cosby Show had always felt like exactly that. A family. A safe place, a reminder of simpler, happier times. But now that illusion was shattered, replaced by a story so dark it felt like a crime novel brought to life. Malcolm's death was no longer a mystery. It was a wound, raw, open, and bleeding all over again. And as the arrest of Tempestt Bledsoe made headlines around the globe, one question burned hotter than the rest. If this was the truth, what other secrets have been buried in Hollywood all these years? The arrest of Tempestt Bledsoe wasn't just another headline, it was the wrecking ball that smashed an entire generation's faith in the people they once idolized. News stations ran the footage on repeat. Tempestt, the hair pulled tight, face drained of color, flinching under the blinding assault of camera flashes as she was led out of the courthouse in cuffs. Her lips trembled, but she stayed silent. For those who grew up watching her, the image was almost too surreal to absorb. How could the girl next door from America's most beloved sitcom now be stamped as the villain in one of Hollywood's darkest betrayals? The disbelief was so deep, some fans refused to believe it until the evidence started dropping. It began with the release of that infamous 1997 tape. For years, it had been buried, locked away from the public eye. But once leaked online, it tore through the internet like wildfire. You could hear Malcolm's voice low, furious, accusing Tempestt of planting lies, whispering poison into the ears of producers, deliberately sabotaging his every opportunity. "You've been smiling in my face while cutting me down behind my back," Malcolm seethed in the recording. "I know what you're doing. You're working with him." And when he said him, the world now knew exactly who he meant: Bill Cosby. The internet instantly turned into a global courtroom. Every pause, every sigh, every flicker of emotion in that tape was dissected like forensic evidence. Fans wept, hearing Malcolm's frustration, his voice fracturing as he confronted the reality that the people he trusted most were sharpening knives behind his back. And then came the most chilling moment, Malcolm's final warning. "One day, you're going to push me too far, and I won't make it out alive." Those words weren't paranoia anymore. They were prophecy. The shockwaves didn't stop with fans suddenly. Former cast members found themselves yanked into the blinding spotlight. Some ducked the cameras entirely. Others tossed out vague, hollow statements about praying for the truth. But the silence from certain corners only made the public's blood boil. If they knew something, why hadn't they spoken up sooner? Then Phylicia Rashad stepped back into the national spotlight, looking more drained than ever. "They wanted Malcolm gone," she said, her tone flat and ice cold. "They saw him as a threat. And instead of helping him, they destroyed him. I stayed quiet because I was scared. I'm not scared anymore." Her voice cracked as she recounted her final conversation with Malcolm. How he told her things were getting dangerous, that he felt eyes on him, that people close to him were funneling information straight to his enemies. And when Phylicia named those enemies, Cosby and Tempestt, stopped being just a personal accusation. It became the unmasking of an entire network of betrayal. By now, public opinion had swung hard against Tempestt. The once beloved actress was trending under hashtags like #HollywoodSnake and #CancelTempestt. But beneath the memes and outrage was a heavy, gut-deep sadness. This wasn't tabloid fluff, it was the real dismantling of a man's life, career, and future. Old Malcolm interviews resurfaced, showing him smiling through gritted teeth, answering questions about his co-stars with a polite diplomacy that now felt chilling in hindsight. You could see it in his eyes, a weight he never dared voice publicly. And then another bombshell. Court filings revealed that in the months before his death, Malcolm had been working to legally sever ties from certain contracts linked to Cosby's production companies. He told his lawyer he felt unsafe trapped in an arrangement that left him exposed. And according to leaked testimony, he believed Tempestt was acting as the middleman, feeding his private fears and moves straight back to Cosby. Private struggles back to Cosby in exchange for her own gain. The revelations painted a bone-chilling picture. Malcolm wasn't just collateral damage from gossip or petty jealousy. He was the bullseye in a calculated campaign to wipe him from the industry altogether. As the case against Tempestt grew, the media frenzy hit overdrive. Paparazzi staked out her driveway. Former friends crawled out of the woodwork with tales of her two-faced antics on. Set. One anonymous crew member even claimed that during filming breaks, she and Cosby would slip away for private conversations that left everyone else uneasy. For the public, the betrayal cut especially deep because Malcolm's legacy had always stood for positivity, dignity, and resilience. He was never the type to air dirty laundry, never the one to throw a co-star under the bus. And yet, behind closed doors, he was hemmed in by people who wanted nothing more than to watch him fall. For fans, the weight of that truth was almost unbearable. Candlelight vigils lit up the night in his honor. Murals of Malcolm appeared almost magically, splashing walls in cities coast to coast. Strangers who had never spoken his name before wept as if they'd lost a brother, because in a way, they had. While the public grieved, Tempestt sat in a holding cell, awaiting trial. Her legal team released a clipped statement insisting on her innocence, but in the court of public opinion, the verdict was already signed, sealed, and delivered. What no one saw coming was the next bombshell, one that would drag this tragedy into even darker territory. An allegation that there was a third player, someone still walking free, someone even closer to Malcolm than Tempestt ever was. Felicia teased it in her final interview before disappearing from the spotlight. "This goes deeper than you think," she murmured, eyes brimming with tears. They weren't the only ones. The idea of another shadow conspirator sent a cold shiver through the nation. If Cosby and Tempestt could betray Malcolm, who else had been in on it? How many more smiling faces were hiding knives behind their backs? The video didn't close with answers. It closed with a suffocating sense of unfinished business. The truth was spilling out, but the more it surfaced, the clearer it became. This was only the beginning. The whispers kicked up almost immediately after Felicia Rashad's cryptic warning. They weren't the only ones. It was a sentence that hung over Hollywood like a storm cloud ready to burst. Social media went feral, fans combing through old footage, interviews, and cast photos like digital detectives chasing a ghost. The question on everyone's lips was both simple and terrifying. If Tempestt and Cosby weren't the only ones, who else had blood on their hands? At first it felt like a conspiracy theory too far-fetched to believe. Until the leak dropped. A former production assistant from The Cosby Show came forward, anonymously, claiming they had witnessed strange, tense interactions between Malcolm and another cast member. According to them, there were days when Malcolm would storm off set, refusing to shoot a scene unless certain people left the room. Then came a second leak, a private email exchange from years earlier between Malcolm and his manager. In it, Malcolm spoke about feeling trapped in a cage built by people I once called family, and warned that 3 people are working together to erase me. 3, not 2. The third name had been blacked out in the leaked email, but the damage was done. Fans now knew that somewhere, hidden behind Hollywood's smiles and decades of reruns, was another betrayer. The emotional toll on fans was devastating. People began revisiting old episodes of the show, pausing to study the way Malcolm looked at his co-stars, searching for signs of pain or mistrust. His laughter on screen suddenly felt hollow. His smile seemed forced. It was like watching a ghost in plain sight, a man surrounded by those who would ultimately orchestrate his downfall. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife even deeper, new court filings surfaced. Buried in the pages was a sworn statement from a longtime friend of Malcolm's, revealing that just weeks before his death, Malcolm had confided that his life was in immediate danger. He claimed one person, someone he had never publicly spoken against, was funneling personal information straight to both Tempestt and Cosby, making them virtually untouchable. This wasn't just betrayal, it was calculated execution. As the story detonated across headlines, Felicia vanished from public view. Insiders whispered she'd been told to lay low until the legal chaos settled. But her silence only fueled the fire. Was she shielding the identity of the third conspirator? Or was she afraid for her own life? Meanwhile, Tempest's arrest had morphed into one of the most watched Hollywood scandals in history. Every time she was escorted from jail to court, cameras mobbed her path while fans screamed, "Murderer!" and "Justice for Malcolm." The sound was deafening, the rage unrelenting, and still, there was an aching sense that justice wasn't complete, because Malcolm's story wasn't just about how that would never heal. His mother, in a rare and gut-wrenching statement, said, "They didn't just take my son's life, they stole the man he could have become." And, she added, they smiled while doing it. As the trial against Tempestt crept closer, rumors swirled that prosecutors were deliberately keeping the identity of the third conspirator under wraps for a bombshell courtroom reveal. Legal analysts predicted it could become one of the most explosive moments in Hollywood's legal history, the kind dissected in law schools and documentaries for decades. Until then, the world waited. They waited for justice. They waited for truth. They waited for the name. And in that heavy silence, one truth was undeniable: Malcolm's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was the ultimate betrayal, planned, executed, and masked under the illusion of family. The very people who should have been his shield were the ones who destroyed him. And when that third name finally drops, it won't just break Hollywood, it will burn it to the ground. And now, we stand at the cliff's edge of truth. Malcolm Jamal Warner, a man who gave his heart to the world, who made us laugh, who made us believe in family wasn't taken by fate or accident. but by a betrayal so deep it shakes the core of our humanity. We've heard the names, we've seen the arrests, but the final chapter is still unwritten. Somewhere out there, the third conspirator sleeps soundly, fully aware they helped steal a life. Somewhere, they walk free, smiling for cameras, hiding behind fake innocence while Malcolm lies silent. This isn't just about one man, it's about every dreamer who trusted the wrong people. Every artist silenced before their masterpiece could be born. Every soul who thought family meant protection only to learn it meant destruction. If Malcolm's story has wrapped itself around your heart, if you feel that knot in your chest and that lump in your throat, don't let his memory fade. Say his name, share his story, demand the truth, demand justice, because the day that final name is spoken will be the day Hollywood is forced to face its reckoning. And when that day comes, we won't stand as fans will stand as the family Malcolm was denied in the end. They stole his voice, they stole his light, but they will never extinguish the fire his truth ignited in millions of hearts across the globe. This fight isn't over. Not by a long shot. Stay awake, stay loud, and remember sometimes the brightest smiles in the photos belong to the ones gripping the knife. This for Malcolm. Always.